this morning we're talking about being plugged in, and this thought kind of developed last month, because today is March 1, and last month was February. And in February, the month of March, Chick-fil-A, how many Chick-fil-A fans do we have here? Yeah. You can't go to Chick-fil-A today. They are closed, FYI. But at Chick-fil-A, the whole month of February, they had free coffee. It was amazing. You could go into Chick-fil-A, not order anything, drink their coffee, and steal their Wi-Fi. It was beautiful. In fact, at one point, the internet kind of went down at the Live for More Center, which is where our offices are, and I said, you know what, I'm going to Chick-fil-A for free coffee and Wi-Fi. And then Grayson, as I was leaving the door, goes, are you really just going to order just coffee? I'm like, yes, I am. So I walked up to the lady there, and I said, I'll take a free coffee. And she's like, and what else would you like? Nothing. And so I got my free coffee. I went and sat down, and I start to work on doing church things. And then all of a sudden, the little alarm on my laptop went off. It said, you have 10% battery left. And I'm like, and so what do? Immediately, I pull out my little plug, and I start the search to get plugged in. And so I went, first around to the corner, like the one eating area. Then I went over to the kids area where there's toddlers screaming and running around. You're like, well, I need power. And then eventually I was just kind of going into the playscape with the children. There's no power anywhere. I kind of look a little bit like a creeper, but that's okay. I needed power. And so eventually I went back and I just kind of, succumbed to the fact that my computer was going to die, and I tried to get as many emails done as I possibly could, and then zip, I now had an awesome paperweight sitting on a Chick-fil-A table, and I just enjoyed a grilled chicken nuggets. All right, so that was kind of my day at Chick-fil-A. And what I learned is that I needed power. And it's something you guys understand. You got to stay plugged in. We understand this from a business concept, right? We understand this. In business, if you are not plugged in information-wise, for example, if you don't have a daily check-in meeting with somebody who supervises you, they have no idea what you're doing, and you have no idea what they're doing. And for some of you, you're like, that's right, that's why I want to leave it. I don't want anyone to talk to me. And I understand that. But ultimately, that's not going to make you very productive. And then there's other people who meet for 20 hours and it's death by PowerPoint, and you just want to, you're thinking about taking that pen and putting in your eye. I understand that too. But ultimately, the most successful businesses, the most successful people have meetings where they're plugged into the people that are making most productive, right? We all understand that. And in fact, we understand the concept of being plugged in when it comes with Jesus, right? We understand that. We understand that, one of the things I talk about on any given Sunday is that I want you to be plugged into a community group. I want you with a group of people that are going to love and rebuke and encourage and all the things that Christians are supposed to do with one another, because you need some one another's to love one another. And so we talk about that. In fact, what I wanted to kind of go into is why it's so important, though, that we are plugged directly into the power source of Jesus. And what does that even mean? Because I think if we're honest, there's a lot of us here, can we just be honest for a second, that show up to church on Sunday, and you kind of go for the back row. I'm not going to call you out. And then as soon as I'm done with the sermon, you jet. You're out of here. And kind of your goal is to talk to no one, right? In fact, you kind of call it a win if you're in and out and no one has actually said hello to you. And kind of the whole point is that, in fact, and I know this because I was one of those. I would actually sit front row because everyone would assume that I was there and knew what I was doing. And so, because nobody ever talks to the front row people because they assume, oh, they must have been here for forever, right? That's kind of how that concept was. So I'd dart to the front, and then as soon as service was over, I'd jet out the back. It was glorious. I acted like I had to be somewhere important, and then no one talked to me. It was beautiful. So that's why I avoided being plugged in for a long time until I found out that's not the point. In fact, I will not experience full joy and full living life until I'm plugged in. In fact, here's the deal. What I've learned through my study of Christianity is that Jesus is really into the party. He is really all about you having the best life and not having the worst life. In fact, this is what the thesis statement of the entire Gospel of John, which we've been in since August, talks about. These are written, this Gospel of John, that you may believe that Jesus is the Christ, and that by believing you may have life in his name. Because a lot of us don't have life. In fact, you would say, Chris, I've been to church for a long time, and I have no life. There's no spiritual vitality. There's no fruit. There's no, and I want to talk about what that might mean. And we're going to hear words from Jesus this morning. So we're going to be in John chapter 15. If you don't have a Bible, raise your hand in the air and a Bible will come to you, because we are all big fans of the Bible. If you forgot yours today, you're like, I don't know, I have my Bible, I left it in the car. Don't run out to the car. We have a Bible for you right here. So a Bible will come to you. And if you don't have one at all, this is our gift to you. We are like thrilled that you are here this morning. All right, so we are in John chapter 15, and to kind of, that's page 901, the Bibles are passing out, John 15. And to kind of talk about where we've been with this in John 15, Jesus has just finished the Last Supper. You guys familiar with the Last Supper? It's a big painting, right? You guys with that? All right, and like, you know, you got Judas going like, I don't know, like, and then you've got John like leaning on Jesus. It's awesome painting. So, and that was kind of John 13 and 14 where Jesus is having dinner with the disciples, and he's kind of breaking it down about this new command he's about to break out of, like loving one another, and it's revolutionary. And then so he sends off Judas, and Judas is about to betray Jesus, and all throughout that dinner, Jesus is doing something that I would really get on people that were in marriage counseling. He's doing this like little guilt barbs, like someone here is going to betray me. Don't know who it is, but someone here is going to betray me. And the reason is he's so hurt by this. He's so hurt by someone's going to betray him. All right? He knows who's going to betray him, and he's still hurt by it. That's the thing that's amazing about Jesus. He's, in a sense, transcendent, beyond space and time, but he's immanent. He feels real pain, real hurt when one of the guys he's invested in for 3 years, even though he knew that he would betray him, does betray him. And so he kind of lets everybody know this really hurts him, which I really appreciate that, because if he doesn't let me know that it is hurting him, I kind of feel like Jesus doesn't have any feelings, but he does. And so Jesus is saying, like, this guy is going to betray me. And then so he kind of sends Judas off, and Judas is the one that's going to betray him, and he's still kind of resonating with a little bit of pain of that. And he says, rise, let us go to the disciples in the end of John chapter 14. And that's where we pick up the story in John 15. And Jesus is heading off to the Mount of Olives. And there's a couple, he might be going past the Jerusalem temple, which had this huge vine on it to represent Israel. Or he could be in the Mount of Olives where there's vines. And the reason I bring that up is because he's about to talk about vines a lot. And you're like, why is he talking about vines? Probably because he sees one. Okay, here we go. John 15, verse 1, page 901. I am the true vine, and my Father is the vine dresser. Now, I'm going to pause right here because Jesus is about to do something we call an analogy, all right? He's going to use the metaphor of the vine to kind of describe himself. Now, sometimes when we look at this, we start to parse things down. So if you were to really parse this down, you'd say, oh, there must be multiple gods, because Jesus calls himself the Son of God, and he's God, and his Father is a vine dresser. Those are distinct persons and distinct substance here. So clearly, there must be more than one God, but that's not true. Jesus is just using this as an example, and this is going to be really important later, because you're like, okay, we get it with the Trinity thing. All right, we don't need to talk about the Trinity every week. But I'm the true vine. Jesus is saying he's the vine, and the Father is a vine dresser. Okay, you guys get that part. And then he's going to say something that is going to make you go, question your salvation. This is the part that I don't want you to do. Every branch in me that does not bear fruit, he takes away. Now remember, he just hung out with Judas, and he's kind of like feeling the pain and hurt of, et tu, Brute. I mean, like there was a moment there, he was not feeling the love from Judas, and he's hurt, and Judas stabs him in the back, and he heads off. And so he said, all of the branches, every branch of me that does not bear fruit, he takes away. Well, he took away Judas. And so there's some of you here, you're like, maybe I've lost my salvation. I know there's some of you who are like, I was a Christian at one point, and now I'm not, or like my part of my life, I don't know if I'm a believer. I don't know if I'm a Christian. I don't know. And like you're really feeling that. And maybe you think you've done something so horrific, or you're in the midst of doing something so horrific that you're like, I don't know if I even am a Christian. And I wanted to show you this verse that John, this author, writes in a letter to the churches, because it tells us one specific point. They went out from us, meaning those who called themselves Christians, they left. But they were not of us, for if they had been of us, they would have continued with us. Christians don't quit. Christians stay. That's just, if you're a Christian, you have the Spirit of God, you don't quit. You're not a quitter. But they went out that it might become plain that they all are not of us. So there are some people who like run around being like, I'm a Christian, and you're like, I don't really know if that guy is. And they're faking it. And in fact, they might even be here. And we don't know. And so I can't judge your salvation, but there's a real sense of like, you may not be a Christian at all, but you cannot lose your salvation. All right, I think that's important because we're about to get into some things that you're making. He's saying we're going to lose my salvation. But remember, we're talking about an analogy that we shouldn't parse too deeply, because if we start doing that, we lose the whole meaning of what the text is supposed to say. All right, so every branch of me that does not bear fruit, he takes away. Judas branches. He gets rid of the Judas branches, the fakers from the beginning. And every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes, which is not always enjoyable. How many can say that they have been pruned a time or two in their life? You're like, that hurt. Thank you, Jesus. I prayed for patience, and I got it. And the reason you got more patience so you could bear more fruit. That's why you're still married. Hallelujah. All right. Already you are clean because of the word that I have spoken to you. All right. And when he's talking about this, you're clean because there was a point in which these guys were not clean, and these disciples now are clean because of the word that God has put in their hearts. Abide in me, and I in you. Now, this word abide is a difficult word. The word abide, I mean, how many of you guys, when you're sitting down in a conversation, be like, you know, I'm really abiding in the internet article of this blog. I'm abiding in this dress that's really white and gold. And I just really have been into this amazing thing. Anyway, so like, how many of you guys talk with words of, you don't ever use abide. You just don't use that word. The word really means, it's a Greek word meno, and it means stay in, and I like to kind of stay plugged in, stay plugged fully in. So I'm going to use it. Every time you see the word abide, I'm going to put in the CSV, the Chris Standard Version, and we're going to do plugged in to me. All right, you guys with me? So that's what I'm doing right there. I don't know if that's legal, but don't turn me in. All right, so stay plugged into me, and I in you. As the branch cannot bear fruit by itself unless it stays plugged in to the vine. Neither can you unless you stay plugged into me. So Jesus has to do something that I think is kind of crazy. Jesus commanded, now think about this. Jesus commanded his disciples to stay plugged into him. I mean, isn't that weird? Like, we have a staff here, like so Grayson and Ben and Phil and Katie and Jordan, like they're on staff. Like, you guys pay them a certain amount of money to be here. It's like me going to them, all right, guys, what I want you to do is stay working here. I mean, there's a part of that where you're like, no, stay working, don't, and you're like, why would you ever say, you would never say that. Unless there's something that you could kind of, how many guys are working somewhere, but you're not all there? Come on, tell the truth. Yeah, all right, look at, yeah. Like you're there, but you're not there. And that is what Jesus is talking about right here. He's like, there's a part of you that you're showing up at church every week, but you're not there. And what you need to do, and this is why some of you left the other church and now you're here, and like you met some cool people, and for a while you're going to kind of ride off the energy that those people gave you, and you're like, woohoo, yay. And then eventually you're going to get tired and burn out, and you'll be like, move on to the next church. And that was a great time having you here for that time that was, and if you're here right now, and thanks for being here for a little bit, and you'll probably be moving on to the next church because you're going to get burnt out because you're not plugged in. You're just here. You're just here. There's nothing. You're not getting any life. You're plugged into something, but it's not Jesus. Because here's what happens. The reason why Jesus has to command, I mean, think about this. 11 guys who had changed the world, he's got to be like, all right, guys, check it out. Don't leave. Like, you wouldn't think you'd have to command these guys to do that. Like, you're starting a revolution. You're like, all right, first thing I want to get up, don't leave. All right, can we work? No, you just kind of talk about cast vision. And he's saying the first thing to these guys, everyone needs to stay plugged in. Why is that? Because there's a natural tendency in you and me to trust in things other than Jesus. Let's be honest. The church has been blogging about 4-letter functional saviors. All right, that's been fun. For example, some of us are tuned into porn. And we go to that darkness, we're drawn to it, and it's like it gives us life, we think, for a little bit, and all of a sudden it's over and we feel worse about ourselves than we began. Or for some it's beer, wine. We binge on beer and wine and Netflix and video games and drugs. It's really all the same. It's just a different escape mechanism for you to get a functional fix on an energy or power or something to kind of help you make it through the day for the moment. But the next day, guess what? You're going to have to do it all over again, and you're going to have to play a couple more hours, or you're going to have to get a little more of a fix because it's not going to give you that same escape, which is why we have awesome rehabs, right? I mean, that is what happens. We need to be plugged into Jesus because he designed us. Listen to me. Jesus designed us to be plugged into him. All right, we're going to talk about this. So Jesus is saying, stay plugged into me, and he's going to tell us why here in this next couple of verses. Watch this. Jesus goes, I'm the vine. You are the branches. Whoever gets plugged into me or stays plugged into me, and I in him, he it is that bears much fruit. For apart from me, you can do nothing. And you're like, okay, that makes sense. And then now Jesus is going to expand on how much nothing you can do. So this is not like you're going to lose your salvation. This is going to be how worthless you're going to be if you're not plugged in to Jesus. So he says this. If anyone does not abide in me or stay plugged into me, he is thrown away like a branch and withers. And the branches are gathered, thrown into the fire, and burned. All right, remember, this is an analogy. Don't parse it. Don't try and make this thing about heaven or hell. It's not about that. It's about your usefulness to God. Let me try to see if I can make it make sense. All right. So do you guys remember, so this year is really cold. Anyone else agree that this year is really cold? Winter? All right. Last year was amazing. Remember last year, winter? It was like frolicking in the woods and like warm, sunny days, and it was beautiful all the time. All right, that was great times. But the year before that, it was Arctic. You guys remember that? All right, so I got this idea 2 years ago. I was sitting in my house, and we had a fireplace, and Adrian had got one of those like little burning logs or whatever from Home Depot. And so we put it in the fireplace, and we're like, now that's awesome. But I was like, I felt guilty. I was like, that's not real wood. We need real wood. And so I was like, where am I going to get real wood? And I was like, I'm not going to go buy real wood because that's not real wood. I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to harvest real wood. So my backyard, it's about the size of the stage plus about 10 feet, okay? And so I go in the backyard and I look at the trees and I go, you shall provide me firewood. And so I just waited. And so over the past 2 years, I've been collecting branches. Not kidding. Like, this is legit. Like, this is awesome. This is from my backyard, all this. There's actually probably another bag full out there, okay? And Adrian, for the longest time, was like, when are you going to burn? I'm like, I need a bigger collection. I need a big fire. So when the in-laws come over, they always talk about how there's probably snakes in there. And I'm like, there's no snakes. It's just my firewood or rats, right? All right, so this has been, but here's the thing. This, at one point, this branch right here had like other like leaves and those little ball things that like fall off and are fruit of some sort. I'm not really sure what kind, but it produced fruit, right? It produced fruit. And then all of a sudden, this thing fell off. It got unplugged, and it wasn't plugged into the trunk, and there's no phloem flowing through it. Phloem. Plant blood. Look that up this week. Pretty awesome. All right. So there's no phloem in this branch. And so this branch is dried up and useless. Now listen to me. Some of us right here feel like this branch. We're not plugged in. And we become useless. Okay, not completely useless. I can use this as a pointer. And I can use this as firewood. But even for firewood, this is like kindling, right? I mean, like this will last like all of like 2 minutes, which is why I got a lot of it. Listen to me. There's something in us that we become like this, and we get guilty, and we become shameful, and we don't live out the life. Remember the whole thesis statement? These are written that you may believe Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and that by believing you may have life. This is not life. I feel burnt out. I've been serving. Listen, here's the thing about serving. And I'm going to start swinging this around if I don't put it down. So those are dangerous to hold on to. Isn't it true that some of you feel burnt out, like right now? The reason you're not serving anywhere is like, I'm burnt out. And that's because you're not plugged in. at the old church that you left, you weren't plugged in there either, and eventually you were serving out of guilt or out of obligation, or you were forced, or there's something was causing you to serve that wasn't Jesus. It wasn't out of the overflow of being plugged into Jesus, the joy that Jesus gave you. Like, yes, I get to serve. Because here's what, there's going to be some people at this church right now, right? They've been here since 7 a.m. setting up, and they're excited about taking somebody to lunch because they're going to talk to them about Jesus today. And then they're going to go serve in the youth group. And then tomorrow night, they're going to be early for First Monday prayer. Tuesday night, they're going to go to the well. Wednesday night, they're going to volunteer with the Boy Scouts. Thursday night, they're going to prepare for the rehearsal for the band. And then, they got something planned every night of the week because they are so out of the overflow. And that doesn't make them, super Christians. It just makes, they're not serving out of guilt. They're not. They're serving out of joy. And the moment that transitions to serving out of guilt or shame, or I gotta impress somebody, you're trying to impress your functional savior of other people, and other people aren't gonna give you energy. In fact, you know what it's like? You guys ever have an Apple device, iPad, iPhone, something, all right, and then your power cord broke or something, or you lost it? How many? Come on. And then you went and got a replacement that wasn't made by Apple, and what happened? All right, and it's it works 3 times, and then it's done. You're like, I'm going to kill somebody. Right? I mean, you've thought that. You're getting burnt out already because there's no power. Now, all of a sudden, this thing that you spent a gajillion dollars on, now all it's good for is a paperweight. And why is that? Because what we did is when we bought this other accessory, and this is the little thing that tells you this, right? This accessory is not what? Compatible with this device. Now listen to me. 4-letter functional saviors, porn, beer, wine, girl, boys, film, news, feed, food, all those 4-letter functional saviors, they were not intended to be your power source. You see, when we plug into the wrong power source, something in us goes, this accessory is not compatible with this device. And so we're running on empty all the time. We're running powerless, and which makes our usefulness like this. And so my heart is that this morning, you would see how you run to the approval of people over the approval of Jesus. That you would see how you are craving something and it's not God. And you would see how it's sapping away your power. Now, let's go back to what Jesus says. Because he says, look, if you abide, if you stay plugged into me and my words stay plugged into you, ask whatever you wish. I mean, he throws that out there. You're like, Jesus, why do you say whatever you wish if you don't mean whatever you wish? He does mean whatever you wish, because here's what happens. You're under the influence of the Spirit. You guys have heard about driving under the influence, right? You guys get that? You imbibe in some 4-letter functional savior, beer, wine, all right? And then all of a sudden, you drive and you're under the influence and you get no accident, right? So what the Bible says clearly about that is don't be filled with wine or drunk with wine, which leads to debauchery, but what? Be filled with the Spirit. That's where you're going to get life. That's what you need. We need life. And so when you are going to the 4-letter functional savior, and that is trying to give you life, it's not designed for your life. Listen, Jesus made you. He made you for one thing, to be compatible with him. And so whenever you are in tune with him, your prayers are going to be his prayers. His words are going to be your words. Ask whatever you wish, and it will be done for you. By this, my Father is glorified, that you bear much fruit and so prove to be my disciples. So check this out. You see, plugged-in disciples experience God's power. Let me see if I can sort of explain this. So this week, I had, I meet with people all week long, and one of the people I met with had just gotten out of jail recently, and there was a felony on their record. And we sat down, and this person was like, listen, I need a job, but I can't tell my employer that I have a felony. They're going to be like, next. So what do you think I should do? And so I had to sit down with this person. This is what I said, listen, who is your God? Is your shrewdness and your ability to kind of maneuver, are you going to trust in that? Are you going to trust in this job? Or are you going to trust in Jesus, who designed you, who made you, who saved you from your sin and even the horrible mistakes that led you to a felony? He even saved you from that. And do you trust him? And he's like, And so he's like, all right, I'm going to do it, but man, this is hard. And you better believe that person was on his knees, right? Just like, ugh. And this past week, call came back, you got the job. I mean, amazing, right? I mean, like, there could have been a point where this person could have been like, every time he came into work, being like, I hope to God nobody checks me out. I hope no one is like going like, let me check that record out, let me check that record, right? I mean, like, that would be like haunting. Every time you walk into work, someone's going to ask. So, there's skeletons in the closet, someone's going to find out. But what if you're free from that? You see, he became free from that the moment he started trusting Jesus over the approval of people or even over the approval of cash. Like the four-letter functional Savior did not own him. Jesus does. Okay, I had another discussion this week, and it was of the dating couple, and I'm sure you guys, this is fun always to talk about dating couples. They were kind of making one another, and you guys know this, they would have all these fights and fights and fights and fights and fights. Because what happened? The other person became their savior. When in a relationship, single people, this is what happens. If at any moment that person becomes your Jesus and you're more worried about pleasing them than Jesus, then that person is your Jesus. And it's time to plug back into Jesus. Does that make sense? That's where your power comes from. That's how you don't get burnt out. That's how you don't come dried up. And so Jesus takes it from, or you want to experience God's power, check this out. It's better than that. He says, as the Father has loved me, so I've loved you. That's a lot of love. I mean, you want to think about how much the Father loves Jesus. That's not like, we went on a couple dates and it didn't work out. That is like, I love you intensely. In fact, when Jesus shows up in the scene, this is my son, whom I love, and him I'm well pleased. And he says, I love you like that. Stay plugged into that love. Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you want to stay plugged into that love? Why? Because in a moment, you don't believe it. I mean, that makes for crappy marriages when you have an insecure person. And that makes for cruddy relationships with God when you're insecure about your relationship with him. And you're trying to fight for like, he's got to love me now, he's got to love me now. No, stay plugged into his love. He loves you. As much as the Father loves him, he loves you. If you keep my commandments, you will stay plugged into my love, just as I have kept my Father's commandments and stay plugged into his love. These things I have spoken to you, that my joy may be in you and that your joy may be full. Listen to this. See, Jesus is not into making everyone miserable. Plugged-in disciples experience the full joy of Jesus. And here's what you're going to say to me, Chris, you don't know my life. Like, you don't know what I've been through. You don't know the stuff. I mean, the hurt, the abuse, the darkness that I've faced. You don't know. How can you tell me to be full of joy? I mean, just get plugged in. Here's how I can tell you that. In spite of what you've been through, in spite of the hurt, listen, because I know that you've been hurt. I know that somebody's taken advantage of you. Somebody's kind of went to the very core of betrayal. And this is why I know this, because there are Christians right now, that are undergoing more darkness than you could ever fathom. You guys been paying attention to the news at all? You know who these guys are? 21 Coptic Christians out of Egypt went to go look for work in Libya. Just regular people. How many of us are in our 20s here? Where are you guys at? Like everybody. Okay. All right, so what happens in this, these guys in their 20s head off. They're just normal dudes. They're not thinking, I'm going to go be a martyr today. They're like, I need to provide for my family. And that's what, these guys did. They headed off. And all of a sudden these ISIS guys capture them and they torture them. and they torture them, and they torture them. And we're not just talking like the comfy pillow torture. We're talking like misery and pain and heartache and bad stuff going on. And they say, you will convert to Islam or we will kill you. And they're like, my joy is in Jesus. No. These guys got families. My joy is in Jesus. My family will be taken care of because my joy is in Jesus. And these 21 20-somethings on a beach fill the Mediterranean with their blood as they sang songs to Jesus before they had no capacity to sing left. Because they had joy. They had real, deep joy. Because listen, I know, listen, you're saying, oh, Chris, that's in another place far, far away. That happened 2 weeks ago in real world time. Listen to me. This world is fading away. This is not the end game. Your job, no matter how high you make it, is not even compared to the joy of Jesus. It's not. I mean, if you look at these guys and the way they kind of face death resolutely, knowing that there is a better hope, a more joy lying on the other side of this veil that blinds us all to what the reality is. Jesus is all about your joy. Now, most likely, you're not going to have to get your head chopped off. You really won't. But listen, in the moment when you're getting angry and you're whining and you're complaining and you're letting everybody know how unfair and distraught and painful, and I want you to go, who is your Savior? Is it Jesus? Or is that work? Or that girl? Or boys? What is it? Because those things won't satisfy. So Jesus is ultimately after your joy. In fact, then he's going to kind of take it to the next level. Watch. So this is the commandment. He's been talking about like, follow my commandments, my commandments. This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. And then he's going to talk about his love. Greater love has no one than this, that someone laid down his life for his friends. What did Jesus do? Jesus went to the cross. Why did he go to the cross? Because there was something separating us from God, sin. And the punishment and penalty for sin is death, hell. And so Jesus goes to the cross. No, think about this. He goes to the cross. In your place, what you deserve, he took on. He experiences hell for you and for you and for you and for you, so you don't have to. And then he's raised from the dead. Greater love. There's no greater love than that. And he said, that's how I want you to love other people. You're like, really? I want you to love people like that. That's how I loved you. I want you to love other people like that. Greater love is no one like this, that someone laid down his life for his friends. You are my friends if you do what I command you, which is always awkward if you have a friendship that starts out with, you're going to be my friend if you do what I command. That only works with Jesus. If you can pull off your own death, burial, resurrection, you could tell me that I'll be your friend if I do what you command, no problem. No longer do I call you servants, for the servant does not know what his master is doing. But I've called you friends, for all that I have heard from my Father, I have made known to you. And then he's going to say something really profound. You didn't choose me. You think you chose me, didn't you? You didn't choose me. I chose you. That's how the Christian life works. You're predestined by God. He chose you and appointed you that you should go and bear fruit. So he chose you for what? To be miserable? No, to go and bear fruit. And so sometimes he chooses us and we're like, I don't know. I think I like being this dried up stick. He said, go bear fruit. All you got to do is just plug in. I'll do the work. All you got to do, your whole job, stay plugged in. Your part, staying plugged in. His part, making phloem. That's with a PH, by the way. You did not choose me, but I chose you and appointed you that you should go and bear fruit, that your fruit should abide. So be plugged in, so that whatever you ask the Father in my name, he's throwing that out one again, he may give it to you. These things I command you. He's commanding him, stay plugged in, because they need this command. You need this command. I need this command. Because whenever things get hard, what do I want to do? I'll unplug and do my own thing, thank you very much. I don't care if I am a dried up stick. Because I don't want anyone telling me what to do. I don't want anyone telling me that I need to be plugged in. We don't want people to tell us what to do. We want to do our own thing and then have everyone applaud. Someone clap for me. Right? That's what we want. That was a joke. Don't do that. Feed my ego in a bad way. Not good. These things I command you, that you will love one another. You see, here it is. The plugged-in disciples love one another. These are the 11 guys. Like, listen, this is what you got to do. Love one another as I've loved you. Now, the best way to illustrate this is about 2013, my grandparents-in-law. You with me? So Adrian's grandparents. They actually emailed me. They said, there might be a person coming to your church who were friends with the parents of their daughter who is married to a guy in Austin, and they're looking for a church, and we told them about yours. I'm like, sweet, we need all the people we can get, right? Like, bring them. And so all of a sudden they said, oh, by the way, the husband doesn't believe in Jesus. And I'm like, awesome. And so I started praying for that guy, and he shows up. In fact, he's right there. That's Robert, right there. Raise your hand, Robert. That's him. All right, so Robert comes in. I'm like, I'm on him. I got his name down. He must have thought like I had everyone's name memorized. I'm like, Robert, how you doing? What's going on? Because I had been praying for him already. I was like, now this is my guy. And so then I'm like, hey, we should like, hey, here's what you need to meet. You need to meet some other Navy people because I already had the Navy people prepped because he was in the Navy. He's Navy. So bam, I had to meet Kyle and Jamie. Next thing you know, they're in their community group. Bum, bum, bum. My prayers are working. All right, so then I'm praying like crazy for them. And then in April of last year, like they disappeared. It's like, what happened? Where'd they go? Like, we need to do some church shopping. I'm like, well, you're not even a Christian. Who cares? You know. Anyway, so on Easter, Robert and Carmen show up, and I'm like, yeah, you're back. And he's like, and this time it was different. Something was different in his eye. He was like singing the songs, and like he was crying. I'm like, something happened here. And he gave his life to Jesus that day. And he got baptized. Yeah, we can always celebrate that. Yeah. And so he gets baptized a little bit later. And then we send him to Africa because he's like, I need to do something. I want to do something like legit Jesus. And so we're like, oh, well, Africa's pretty legit. And so if you don't know, James and Dee Dee are our missionary couple in Africa. In fact, if you'd like to write a letter to them, we have a little thing in the back where you can write James and Dee Dee a letter because it gets lonely in the mission field. So if they know their church loves them, supports them, that's good. Anyway, so he goes out and visits them. And then he gets malaria, which is and he still had joy of Jesus because he was plugged in. And then little did he know, as he's enduring malaria on his way back to the States so he doesn't die, another guy would be heading out to Africa who didn't know Jesus nor care. But because his mom asked him to go on a mission trip, he came. And so he goes, and he's in Africa, and he meets Robert, and he's like, I'm from Austin. Where are you from? I'm from Austin. Really? I love cars. I love cars too. It was like one of those, like you guys ever see when a girl and a guy meet, like, me too, me too, me too. It was like that, only not weird. So so they connect, and like, we need to hang out when we get back. And so Robert heads back, and Jordan meets James, our missionary out there, rededicates his life to Jesus, comes back, and then they become attached to the hip. And these two guys love Jesus. In fact, they're like, what's a need that we can meet? These guys fix cars. In fact, Jordan is like a mechanic. He works Monday through Friday as a mechanic. That's like what he does. And then Robert's like, hey, I got an idea. Let's use our skills on cars. Let's help people out at the church and then people who don't know Jesus so we can tell them about Jesus after we fix their car. And since that day, they took over Jordan Hope's garage. Where's Jordan? Where you at? Yeah, they took over her garage, so she's not allowed to park in there because we're fixing your cars there. In fact, right after this, they're going to be going, right after the service is done, Jordan and Robert are going to go back, and they're going to start fixing more cars. That's what they do. Like every day, if you have a car issue, contact them. They'll be like, thank you for that. I'm going to be like, they'll never do anything else. But what they said is, listen, Jordan is 20. He's 20 years old, and he gets off of work at the end of working really hard. And what most people do is they go down the 6th Street and get obliterated. But what he wants to do is go fix your car. Who does that? It's somebody that's been so filled up with some Jesus juice that all they want to do is go share it. And so whenever Robert and Jordan say, listen, I know we're fixing your car, and they do it for, we also have a stripper ministry that's not connected, but strippers somehow make their way to Robert, and they fix their cars. And they said, well, listen, I wouldn't do this normally. Like, I wouldn't care about you, but because Jesus changed my life, all I want to do is serve people. And that's when a person who's in real darkness goes, that's weird. Tell me more about that. And all of a sudden, people go from darkness to light because they see that there's somebody who actually cares about them. Somebody who cares! Isn't that what you want to know? Somebody cares about me. And when you've been filled up with Jesus, you care and you love one another. But listen. Some of you have been trying to do the loving with being a dead stick. Plug back in and let the Jesus juice flow so that you have fruit in your life and you don't make another functional savior out of another ministry and you get burnt out and fried because nobody respects you or understands why you're doing this. I want to see our church be a church so filled up with Jesus that all we want to do is tell people about him. So tonight, we're going to start a fast. You guys know what a fast is, right? No food. Now, people always ask me, what about, that's not a fast, but you can fast from things. Like, you can make it up. That's fine. This isn't a legalistic thing. Like, at least 7 people are going to come up to me and be like, Chris, I have a food, something. I can't fast. I'm like, I don't care. Listen, it's not about the legalistic fasting from food, but fast. Some of you guys need to fast from Netflix, like a lot. Like, you won't even know what to do with your time. Like, you'll be sitting there with your wife being like, what do we do? What are the Bravermans doing? I mean, how can we not check in on them? Some of you you're gonna have a real issue, and it's gonna be a little painful. That's called pruning. As we prune off the Netflix addiction, as we prune off the video game addiction, like, I want you to fast from something. Food is great because food always makes you go, wow, I'm really hungry. Oh, that's how I should feel spiritually about Jesus. Remember, because Jesus said, I'm the bread of life. You're supposed to feed on him. And if you feed on anything else, you're going to end up powerless, ineffective, dried up. So part of the fast is that we're going to be praying for some. We're going to be praying for the persecuted, those 21 dudes and their families. We're going to be praying that as it doesn't look like martyrdom is going out of style. It's only going to increase. In fact, there's been more martyrs now, current day, than there's ever been ever. Think about that. And we're going to be praying for them. We're going to be praying for what's going on in your own lives. In fact, on your bulletin, if you ever pull out your little bulletin thingy, on that there's like a little section that says like prayer requests. I want you to take that, fill it out, and put it in the giving box at the end of this, because we're going to be praying over all this tomorrow night at 7 o'clock at the Live for More Center. So we're starting our fast at 8 p.m., fast from food or whatever. And then at 7 o'clock, gather the Live for More Center. I want everybody there. I want that place packed out where like fire code has to be called in and we worry about doing things illegal. All right, that's kind of my hope. And so then what we're going to do there is we're going to be calling out to God. One, you're going to be plugged in all day. All day because you're going to be hungry. Like, man, I'm hungry. And you're going to think about food. And then instead of thinking about food, you're going to think about Jesus, because man does not live on bread alone, but on every word that comes from the mouth of God. And you're going to be like, I need that in me. That's what I want from you. I want you to be plugged into Jesus and his church. There's something else, because here it is. I know that some of you are plugged in. You're like, I am like all Jesus juiced up. I just don't know where to serve. Put me in, coach. I'm ready to play. Well, in the back right there, if you see Jordan, our happy mechanic ministry guy, raise your hand, Jordan. Right behind him is a place you can plug into at that table. There are a bunch of ministries. If there's a ministry we don't have, write yours in. It's like write in your own votes. Those are the ones we need, but if you're like, you actually need this, we're okay, we're open to it. What I want you to do is write in where you want to serve. Get plugged in. If you're a covenant member here, we are going to be checking in with our covenant members. If you have no idea what that is, don't worry about it, but covenant members who do know who you are, you signed a covenant that said that you're going to come to church regularly, you're going to be involved in a community group, you're going to be giving, you're going to be serving, and we're going to check up to see how you're doing with that. And we're going to check out all of our members. What I've always learned is if you don't inspect what you expect, nothing ever gets done. In fact, isn't that what you want? The reason why you became members is so that someone would say, whenever the darkness is coming, I'm going to provide covering. I'm your spirit. This church is your spiritual covering. And we want to make sure that you're getting fully plugged in and having a life flow through you so that you can experience the power, love, and joy of Jesus. If you've never received Christ, if this whole thing is so new to you, you're like, what is that? Crazy. I'm hoping that today is the day you're like, you know what, I need something more. I've been plugging myself to all sorts of stuff, thinking that that might fill this need for something. And you've ended up empty, like a stick. And I want you to have life and have it to the full. I want there to be something kind of invigorated in you, and you're like, yeah, give me more. I want that excitement to flow through you. And today we're going to be baptizing Zaria. She gave her life to Jesus. And it's one of the most exciting things you do. My hope and my prayer that when Austin is her age, she'll be like, all I want is Jesus. This girl in her home talks about Jesus all the time. She's rebuking everybody in the name of Jesus. And it's beautiful. And it's one of those things that you get excited about to watch in a child. Because that's how simple the gospel is. Jesus died on the cross for your sins. If you believe it, you are saved. That's all she did. But then here's the thing. Once you start to investigate how powerful and beautiful this message is, you can never get tired of studying. You could go to seminary and get a doctorate in this stuff because it's so deep and so profound that even though only a child can understand, you can never get tired of studying. So this morning, I'm hoping that something happens, that you'll be invigorated to say, I'm going to come forward and I'm going to accept Christ this morning. Or that you will say, like, I'm tired of being a dead stick. I want to get plugged in and so I can have value and service to the kingdom without getting burnt out. Would you guys pray with me? Father, would you save somebody here who doesn't know you? Somebody who is far from you? Somebody who was like Robert, just skeptical of this whole church thing and over-marketing and all the stuff that churches can be frustrating with. God, I pray that you would break through all of the barriers and just open up a heart and say, I want you to be my son, my daughter. Would you do that, God? And Lord, for those of us who've been saved and life got hard because we start trusting in our functional Savior as opposed to the true Savior, would you reinvigorate us to trust in you, to look to you, so that your Jesus juice would flow and we would bear fruit, much fruit. Lord, would you do your thing that you do when you open up our hearts and our minds and we trust in you over the things of this world. Make us valuable for your kingdom as we push back that darkness. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Imagine what would happen if we just plugged in, if we stayed plugged in, if we just kind of utilized the power that God has given us through his son Jesus and we were just connected. And when things got hard, we didn't just go like, I'm done. We would stay because a joy is firmly rooted in Jesus. I mean, what would happen? What would happen at your office? What would happen with your family? What would happen at school? Things would be transformed. And people will go, I want to know who your God is because something's different about you. There's something flowing through you that makes you alive because I feel like a dead stick. Would you receive the benediction? Go and be a people who stay plugged in. Go and experience the power of Jesus Christ. And go and feel that full joy that just rushes through us who have the Spirit. And go and love one another because of that flow. Push back the darkness and have an awesome week of worship.